So this video isn't even related to Warframe. I'm just recording this for my sake. I'm just using Warframe because I don't have to hear my PS4 fan in the background, and I can just mute the game if there's any audio. Again, I'm doing this for me because I'm running a paper, an argumentative essay on a topic that you can choose, and my topic is just loot boxes and why I consider them online gaming. They should be and some maybe banned. I like that's the thing is I have to by the end I have to because my paper is essentially it's an argument paper, but it's essentially a policy paper because I want to change a
Your dish has been
policy.
counting stars,
So
operator.
at the end, I still need to
All
decide.
attentive.
Well, what do I want to have in the loot box? Do I want them to be illegal? Do I want them to be regulated? Do I want them to be only available to like 20 plus, like how casinos are? So that's another issue I have to iron out. But the main thing I'm stumped on right now is my audience because in every video I make, uh, I'm assuming whoever watches it either plays the game I'm talking about, or at least knows, or at least is in the ID, like at least they're a person that plays games, so they're in that space, right? So they understand terms like RNG or DPS, like they understand terms like that because they play games. Um, so for my audience, my professor, he doesn't play games. He doesn't, um, and that's another reason why last year when I tried to write this paper, my professor didn't let me write it because she said she wouldn't know how to properly grade a paper because she didn't know the topic well enough. So my professor's like, you know what, you can write it. So my idea is to use an analogy to kind of like broach the subject because again, in my paper I say, okay, well, a loot box is a microtransaction where you pay a certain amount of money, usually like $2 or $1, to get a virtual crate. Usually it's in the form of a virtual crate. You open it up, it gives you a random assortment of cosmetics. That's how I describe it. Now I don't know if people will understand maybe what the hell is a virtual crate or whatever. So I had two analogies. They're both pretty terrible, but like this is what I'm trying to work with here. So my first analogy, the first one I thought of is let's say you go to a store, it doesn't matter Best Buy, whatever, and you get a phone, and the phone comes with a case. Um, the case is and that everyone who ever buys that phone will get that case. There's no difference from first person to last person. It's just standard, right? Everyone else can get the phone with the case. That's it. However, the salesperson says, for just $2, I can offer you these other cases, and they show you an assortment of all these other cases. Some of them are basic, like solid colors like black, green, white, blue. Other cases have stripes. Some cases have polka dots. Some cases are ornate. They have like a lotus or a holographic design, um, or they're chrome and they're shiny. And now the salesperson says, you know, all these cases, it doesn't matter if it's the shiny chrome one or just a simple solid green one. They will not affect the performance. Not they don't guarantee. The green one isn't weaker than the chrome one when it comes to protection. It's just purely a cosmetic change. Now let's say, okay, well, I would like to purchase a case. Now, instead of you saying, okay, well, I want the solid green one, I want the chrome one, they take all the cases and they put them into a giant box, right? And you notice too that they put more quantities of certain cases that they deem that are basic into the box, while the more ornate ones that they would deem of a higher quality only come in like maybe a pair of two or one get put in the box. Now it's all shuffled around, and then once you pay your $2, you put your hand in there blindly and you pull out a case, whatever case it is you get. Now let's say it's the case that you don't want, or let's say it's the case you want. They're happy. There you go. That's fine. But if it's the case you don't want, you can either leave again or you can pay another $2 to see if you get what you want. And that's my first example, trying to explain that it's gambling in the sense that even if you're guaranteed the item, because another reason why Activision and EA and other companies like, oh, well, it's not online gambling, is that you're guaranteed an item, so it's not technically money lost because the skin holds some sort of value. As in Wolf of Casino, when you play a slot machine, you might just get nothing and you don't get any. Like you might pay money and you get like no matches and you get nothing, right? That's I think that's the main point they're trying to say. It's not gambling and oh well it's not essential to the game. So back to my other analogy. It's basically the same thing with shoes. Maybe because I know phones are popular. Everyone has a phone, and I know everyone wears shoes. I think right. So it's the same example where it's like you go to a store that specializes in making a specific running shoe, right? All the shoes are the same quality, same color, everything standardized. Again, the first person who gets a shoe is not different from the last person who gets a shoe. They're all the same. And again, they offer you the different colors, saying, well, again, none of the colors affect performance. None of this will change anything. It's just purely a visual look, purely visual. Um. Oh God, is my game frozen? Okay, well that's fine. I just needed it for recording anyways. And the same offer is, you can pay $2 and go through the same process. Now, there's I don't know if that's necessarily a good analogy. I think it's a good analogy because it really does encompass what a loot box is. It's completely random. You might be lucky, you might get what the item you want on the first try. You might be unlucky, never get the item you want, or you might be lucky and get it after like 50 tries or something. Um, I feel like that's a good idea because again, another thing I have to do is I have to define what gambling is because in the Vegas terms, gambling is playing a game for money, right? That's what it's defined as, which is very vague, very vague. Because you could like people who play esports, they play a game for money. Is that gambling? Um, so I think another definition used the word chance. So that's what I'm trying to hone in on is the idea of chance that it's not guaranteed. Like, sure, you're guaranteed something, but it's not the one you want. So you're more inclined to keep going till you get the one that you want, which is that gambler mentality of just keep going till you get what you want. But yeah, that's that. But I'm trying to. Hmm. I know I was gonna say something else, but I got lost. Because then after that, analogy, because I think that analogy should encompass what a loot box is. I don't know how else to describe it. Because again, um, the phone in the case is basically the $60 game, right? It's standard. Everyone who buys, Destiny, everyone buys Fortnite, everyone buys whatever has the same game. There's no difference. Even if you, I mean, no, I guess there's different editions, but I'm just talking about like just buying the standard edition, right? Everyone gets the same game, nothing's different about it. And then loot boxes are that, well, it's completely cosmetic, right? Not you don't need that skin to play. You don't need that ornament on your exotic to use the gun. You don't need that skin on Overwatch to play the character, right? It's purely like an expression. It's cosmetic. And the idea is what I'm getting at, because that's another argument. They say, well, okay, you don't have to buy a loot box, which is true. I don't buy a loot box. I've never bought a loot box in any game I've played. Overwatch, Destiny, whatever. Every loot box is one I just got from earning them like naturally. So I'm one of the person that I don't really gamble. I don't care. I don't try to play the chances, shit like that. I stop. If I don't get it, I don't get it. Um, but I know it's kind of like how with alcoholics, because that's another point. Is that, oh well, there's not a lot of people that are hard because I was gonna bring up the case where some kids spend like $8,000 with like buying Fortnite stuff or whatever, and they'd be like, oh well, that's just an extreme because that could be a logical fallacy because it's some extreme example. But what I'm trying to allude back to is that it's like how bars and casinos work. Like with bars and casinos, they actually profit off the alcohol. Like the most of the money comes from that 1% that is alcoholics, that is gamblers, that are the hardcore people that go that drink alcohol or play or gamble. Right. That's where most of the money comes from. Um, it's not from people who are like me that like get a free loot box or buy one and they just they're done. Right. They don't like they can walk away from it. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is that I also want to mention how predatory some of these things can go. Like, I mean, there's always the famous Battlefront 2 example, but like even in a game like Destiny, where um like the loot boxes contain all this crap, whatever. Also, I need to talk about. I don't know if I should add like maybe they add stuff. Well, I mean, in that example, I could also mention that like add the extra like caveat that well, some of the cases that you don't like are also being added into the box. Like there's some cases that you don't like visually that are also being added into the box. That could be a thing too. Cause oh no, I was talking about. I was trying to relate the idea how rarity works to like to a person that doesn't play a game. Because I need to somehow because there's value in rarity, right? You like there's some legendary skins or exotic ornaments that I don't like in Overwatch or in Destiny, but they have a higher value just because they're considered rare or legendary, right? And to some people that might just be enough. Some people like in CS:GO, um, like there's those CS:GO knife opening. Like someone gets like a knife skin that's like not factory, the one that's like worn, right? The war torn one. Like it looks like shit, right? It's a shitty looking knife skin. But again, it's the fact that knife skins are so rare that that in itself adds value. Kind of like no, actually no, that's a different example. Because Gjallarhorn is actually really strong. Um, God, now I got lost again. Oh yeah, talking about like yeah, the people that abuse like that are really that go hardcore. Yeah, like for instance with Destiny and their loot boxes, um, it's like for instance like my like let's see. Yeah, with Destiny, the thing I try to point out with is like look at the progression of like for instance, I think one of my lines is like for something that is completely optional, they're usually heavily marketed or on the front page of the game, right? When you go to Overwatch, loot boxes are at the like near the middle of the screen. When you go to Apex, they're in that corner. When you go to Destiny, you have ads, you have the Ever stores down the directory. You can go into the store before you go into the tower to pick up your bounties, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. Like they heavily marketed loot boxes, and then the idea of even event loot boxes. Because again, another thing they argue is that oh well, it's our skins the value there's no set value because at the end of the day a skin is like a piece of code, right? It's something that someone drew up, put in, modeled, and then that's it. Like there's no physical tangible value. Like unless you're playing CS:GO, I guess. Like for instance, if I have a last word ornament that doesn't translate to $5, right? Like I might have spent $5 to get it, but the value isn't necessarily $5. Like for instance, like most shoes like cost like 50 or $100, but like when you the actual like production cost is like $10 or like 2 cents. Like what I mean, like the actual production value isn't equivalent to what they're selling it, right? Usually, to the higher they sell it at a much larger price to get more money. So, like that's what I'm trying to explain with like the because that's the entire point is like saying, oh well, even though it's a legendary rare skin, it really is only like worth like 5 cents of actual production value, but they might value it as like $2, which is what they're paying for it. So they're putting the onus on the players for buying the loot for valuing that skin even though it's rare, right? Which is true, which is partially true because again, but you have to think about this. When it comes to like event loot boxes, you have like I feel like the idea of event loot boxes like puts more pressure on the player to get an item. For instance, I don't really care about Overwatch skins. I don't really buy them outright. But when there's an event, I usually say, okay, well, which skin do I want to buy like right now? Because I know either A, I'm not gonna play the game a lot, or B, the real reason is that this event is limited. It might be here for 2 weeks, might be here for a month, but it's gonna be gone. And in most cases, they usually come back. But sometimes it might be a one-time event for the rest of the game's life cycle. And if you don't get that cosmetic, well, it's gone forever. So that idea of the rarity and places more urgency on the player because now not only is it rare because you have less chance of getting it, but it's rare because after a certain point, it's no longer obtainable. That's another point. There was another point I just thought about that just again slipped my head. Um, let's see. I talked about hmm, onus on the players. Let me look over. Let me look over my paper again. Will I upload this? Probably. I don't know. Maybe if someone else has an issue of like an argument paper. Oh, that's another thing I was talking about. Cause I know this is the one where I'm kind of iffy about. Cause I list off games that have loot boxes. I say Destiny 2, CS:GO, Overwatch, Apex Legends, um, Fortnite, Halo 5, and I said these games are popular and they all have loot boxes. Now, something that I actually didn't think about that I kind of noticed is the rating of the games. Because again, the entire issue is that in my belief, I feel like if you're gonna have loot boxes, then it has to be for older people. Because it started to occur to me, wait a minute, isn't Destiny 2 rated T for teen? Isn't Halo 5 rated T for teen? And I looked through all the games I named, and only one game is not rated T for teen. That's CS:GO. Let me check it up right now. I'm pretty sure CS:GO is not T for teen. I'm pretty sure it's immature. Yeah, look, CS:GO gambling. That's the first one that pops up, like those skin sites. Like I honestly, I should probably use CS:GO over Destiny 2 in that example because it actually is gambling because there's a market and you can actually you know trade crap like the CS:GO Lotto fiasco. Um, oh, that's actually a good. That's a good one. I should write about CS Lotto. That's a good one. That's a good one. No, but CS:GO ESRB rating. Yeah, it's rated M. Okay, so like I don't. So here's like where I don't know if I'm landing on the terms of like a conspiracy or am I kind of losing the plot? Because I was gonna mention, because again the ESRB on the board, there's a lot of people from like the big companies like EA owns. I know EA has a lot of stock in the ESRB. Let me see again. Let me check because I'm gonna have to use actual like data statistics. Yeah, ESRB. I mean, I can also talk about the FIFA, the whole entire pay to win aspect too, where in games it's not just purely cosmetic, where you actually pay for an advantage. Which is, but then I feel like that's kind of. I mean, yeah, I can relate to gambling because people can keep paying until they get those good cards. Like I know Battlefield or Battlefront 2, you have the card system. FIFA, you get certain characters from like loot boxes that are better. Um, like I know a lot of the big companies actually are on the board of the ESRB, and I was like saying I don't know, like the ideas I'm trying to get is that they purposely lower the rating to have a wider audience because there's more like because if you notice most people that play games like Destiny or Fortnite or Apex are actually like 20 plus or 18 plus. A lot of older people, right? I'm now that's not to say that there's no younger people. Of course, there's gonna be younger people. There might even be more younger people. I actually have to look that up because I don't want to put any false information in there or assumptions. I want to actually like you know whatever. Um, and again, the idea is that I'm trying to like mention the fact that so the games like Apex, for instance, like if you look at a game like Titanfall, right? Titanfall 2. Let's check what Titanfall 2 is. Titanfall 2. I'm pretty sure Titanfall 2 is rated M. If it isn't, then I'm like, oh shit. Come on, load computer. Oh, okay. It says violence is the primary reason why the game has a rated mature. So okay, so Titanfall 2, right? Perfect example. Rated M, right? Now, Apex Legend is basically the battle royale version of Titanfall 2. Takes place in the same universe. Again, there's and what I'm trying to get at is that there's blood, there's violence, and even like let's look at the executions because you have finishers right in Apex. There's finishers where like revenants where you legit just like you have finishers like Caustic where you smack them in the head and you drop a gas canister, right? That's kind of violent, but it's still kind of tame. Um, what else? You have like the Mirage one where he dances around and kicks you. Oh, that's not bad. But you have things like Revenants where he legit snaps your neck. You have things like what you call it, Watson's where she atomizes a person, like extremely violent. And you think, well, wouldn't that be rated M for mature, right? Or like Halo 5. Every other Halo game is rated M. But why is Halo 5 rated T for teen? Like, why are these games that you would think is violent, that have blood and all this other stuff, why are they rated lower, right? Especially in the case of Apex and Titanfall, where yes, Titanfall is more gory because some of the finishers, like Insides Out, where you go inside someone and explode them, are violent. But still, in the level, like, they're still comparable. They're still very close. And I'm trying to get at that they purposely lower this to appeal to a bigger market. And I don't see that's the thing. Like I don't know if I should say purposely because that's inciting like some sort of like again a conspiracy. Like I could point out that again I could just say oh well Apex and Titanfall they're same universe and I can point out the violent finishers and just say how come this game is like leave the question out in the open or maybe that might is not a logical fallacy begging the question, right? Let me check it real quick. Because I'm trying to not put any logical fallacies because you lose points for that. Oh, great. Google just crashed. I think my phone is crashing because I don't have enough space on it because I kept downloading all my Mangamoos. Rhetorical begging the question is an informal fallacy when it assumes the truth of the conclusions that are supporting it. Okay. Let me look at some examples. That food made me nauseous. No, the food was nauseous. You made it feel. No, the food was nauseous. It made you feel nauseated. Come on, that's just begging the question. Oh, it's like you're I don't know. I mean, let's see. So, because again, the main point is what I'm trying to appeal is that it's a predatory practice, right? They're purposely targeting younger because younger people are more susceptible. I'm not saying an adult will never become a gambler and alcoholic, but most people that have those addictions started early on. I'm like again, some people that are older might have a traumatic experience that pushes them towards that, but I'm pretty sure. Again, I'll look at the statistics in my paper to actually prove my point. But I'm pretty sure a majority of like hardcore gamblers or alcoholics started off when they were in their teens because the entire point is that I want the argument. I want to persuade the reader that yes, loot boxes are a form of online gambling, and they shouldn't be allowed in games that are not rated M or A for adult. Now, again, there's still that problem of if you know, like I've done this ever since I was a kid. But if you go on PlayStation or whatever, you can put your age to whatever and buy M-rated games. Like that's how I played Dead Space 2 when I was like 12. Um, well, not maybe I played when I was like 15 or something. I played Dead Space 2 like maybe like when I was younger, right? Even though I was rated M game, it was very violent and nightmarish and all the crap, right? I love the game. So I'm not saying like there isn't a way to. I'm not saying this is a perfect. I'm not saying this is the end all be all solution because of course not. There's different ways people can circumvent it. It's kind of like buying a firearm, right? Like let's say the state outlaws firearms, you could still there's still other avenues to get what you want, right? If there's a will, there's a way. So I mean, I'll concede that. I'm not saying this is the end all be all solution, but my main argument is that loot boxes should not be in video games because um, it's targeting the younger audience and it's making them more susceptible to that developing dangerous habits such as gambling. Um, I mean that's true. Another I know this is like a side reason. This is nowhere near as important, but I also feel that loot boxes have heavily just degraded the industry. Because again, why put all these effort into making a good game when you can make a mediocre game and sell cosmetics out the ass and get money for it? Like Destiny 2, perfect example. Uh, I think they made 30 million on online sales. I don't know if online sales includes digital downloads of Destiny 2 and the Eververse or just Eververse alone. Because another thing I noticed too is that ever since loot boxes and games as a service have become popular, it's more of a norm for a game to be mediocre at launch and then fixed over time, and then DLC and stuff will be sold, like loot box will be sold, and it will be put in the frame of, oh well, it's helping the game. The money we're getting is helping the game. Well, Destiny 2's had Eververse since Taken King, and in my opinion, the game hasn't gotten really much better. In some cases, gotten a lot worse. So, like for instance, Trials of Osiris and the anti-cheat stuff. Clearly that money is not going to anti-cheat or whatever the hell or PvP because it's. I've seen some clips. It's ridiculous. I'm getting off topic, but the way I'm structuring my essay is, the intro will be a story about the kid who spent like not just one kid but maybe like two or three, because again I don't want to just be like, I don't want to sound like I'm cherry picking examples. Like I don't want to be like, oh well, you see this one case this in this one specific instance, because it's actually more common than people think. So I want to do a couple of that, and then like that'll be my intro. My thesis is basically saying although companies like EA, Activision, Blizzard say loot boxes isn't an online form of gambling, it's some optional microtransaction, it's harmless. I argue that it's not because X, Y, and Z, because it's predatory marketing. It encourages like gambling behavior, that mentality, chasing the dragon. Oh, well, let me get that phone case one more time. Let me put my hand in the box one more time and see if I can get it right. Body paragraph. My first one's going to be defining what exactly is a loot box is, because I think that first paragraph is going to be probably the most important paragraph of my paper, probably more so than my evidence, because if someone doesn't understand the core idea of what a loot box is, then everything else is lost. Like, should the introduction might be heartwarming or tear jerking, whatever, might get them interested, but if they don't understand what I'm talking about, then there's no point in going in the rest, right? So after to explain what a loot box is, the way I phrased it, I was gonna, put my next one gonna be the rebuttal, saying, well, they say one, two, three, and then the next one is I'll counter each point and then add my own point, like counter each point and then explain it. Like, so I was gonna say, okay, well, EA says that it's not optional, or no, EA says yeah, it's not optional. You're not accountable. You're right. It's not optional, but they market it heavily and they shove it in your face, so you're more inclined to. They're not necessarily. Again, no one's forcing you. It's like when you say to an alcoholic, well, you don't have to drink. Well, you don't have to gamble, right? Sure, they don't have to. And they can have the willpower to resist it, but they're more inclined to. Maybe that might be too an extreme example because that assumes they already have an addiction. But like with the video game thing, like I don't have to buy Overwatch loot crates. I don't have to get them. But there's that. Remember, if you have that little score or whatever, you get more loot boxes based off that. And there's even a message like "good job" and all those positive things. And oh look, now you have like also the association of like like the whole entire dopamine thing in loot boxes. For instance, like let's say you open a loot box, right? And let's say you're yeah, let's say you're playing Destiny 1 with the engram system, right? You know how sometimes you can get an exotic from legendary engram? Like there's a different reaction when someone sees the gold from the purple, or like if you do division, right? The division loot boxes. When the box opens up, you don't necessarily see the item right away. You see a color, and that color can affect like how you view it, or so like it affects you mentally, right? If you see a white, you're not gonna care, but if you see a red, you're like whoa, right? If you see a gold, you may be whoa. Now, and the thing is, you might not even like the item. You might think it's uglier than the white, but it's that idea that you're associating the rarity to the value that people are happy to see, or happy to see the CS:GO knife, even though it's like a shitty condition, or happy to see the exotic ornament, even though they might not like it, because it's that idea that we associate the value to the rarity. Because some like for instance like in Overwatch Orisa, right? One of my favorite Orisa skins is just a blue skin called Plains, right? I actually like that more than her legendaries. So for me, um, when I get a legendary, I'm not exactly happy for it. Like yeah, it's like there is a part of me that oh that's cool, I got a legendary. See, and that little part that says oh that's cool. For some people, that's more than a little part. That's like the entire thing. Like oh I got a legendary, that's good. Even if I don't like it, I got a legendary, that's good. Um, like and that type of thing can that kind of affects like that's kind of like the gambler mentality, kind of like I don't know. Uh, Damn, I've been going on for like almost 30 minutes now just talking to myself. Um, Anything else? So yeah, oh my structure, right? So I would basically they'd say a point. I'll list up the 3 points or multiple points, and then each. I don't know if I'll dedicate each paragraph to refuting an argument because this paper is going to be 5 to 7 pages. So maybe I might want to maybe make my rebuttal like a page, like not my rebuttal, my the counter like a page, and then each little argument will be like half a page example and then like a source, half page example source. So if it's three, then that'll be like 1.5 pages, right? If I take two. Um, because right now my body's kind of just a mismatch of all the other body paragraphs. I like the way I write is I kind of just throw everything out there and then see if I can rearrange and pick anything out from what I've been writing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't actually. Sometimes like, what the hell was I thinking here? Um, yeah. So, and then after that, the conclusion. Now, the conclusion is interesting because ideally, the way I've been taught is that you don't want to leave any additional information, but you want to make your reader think, right? Like usually you end off a rhetorical question or you drop a knowledge bomb on them. Um, and I was thinking maybe the knowledge bomb I'll drop is like notice the trend of games that you think would be rated M like 10 years ago are actually rated T for teen, and maybe that has something to do with it. But again, that's introducing that. I mean, technically, I could bring up the ESRB and the EA board, them sharing the board on it, or I could mention that earlier on my paper, like in passing, then bring it up again. So technically, I'm not introducing any new information, but I don't know. Conclusions are always the hardest, right? Usually, like it's like some movies are like really great, but the ending ruins everything, and that could be the same for paper. Like if you don't stick the landing, it could kind of make your paper flop. I mean, maybe not so much as in writing. Like I know Stephen King, he had that issue. Like a lot of people, their criticism is that he's really good at writing the story and all this other stuff, but the endings just always suck, and they just kind of ruin the book. I know I forget the name of the author, but he purposely writes his ending first, so he makes sure he gets that right, and the rest will just come down naturally. I mean, that's kind of like how some books start at the end, like I forgot what it's called, where you start at the end of the book and then you flash back towards the beginning. So then, like, you can flesh out the ending. Let's see. Yeah, that's about it. I don't know if anyone's gonna watch this, but if you do, any any comments, any criticism, any additional ideas? I'm trying to like I have an I it's not that I don't know what to do. It's just like I think my main thing I'm asking for help for is maybe another analogy, or maybe not another analogy, but maybe did you find that analogy like good enough? Did you like I? It's kind of weird because I know this is gonna be biased because again the people that usually watch my videos do play games and have a knowledge of what a loot box is. So that's why it's so hard for me to try to explain it because I already know what it is. Like I have a well defined, I know what a loot box is, but trying to explain to someone else, it's like trying to explain what the hell DPS and all this other shit means to someone who doesn't play a game. Like what the hell do you mean damage per second and all this other stuff and what's a buff, what's a debuff and all it's really weird. I think that's my heart. I think that's the hardest part of this essay. Is not necessarily finding evidence and explaining and finding evidence and refuting the counter arguments and stuff like that. It's just explaining what I'm talking about. Because again, I remember last year when I tried to preach this topic, only one person in my class knew what the hell a loot box was, and you'd be like, oh well, I remember looking this up, like like 2 billion people play games, like you have 200, like 2 billion, so like 2 out of 7, 2/7 of the world population plays games. Um, so you think of, and it's actually it's a popular medium now. There's advertisements on TV, but there are some people that just don't care for games. They don't play games. So I don't know. Like that's what my paper's writing on is can I explain effectively what a loot box is? And can I also explain effectively what gambling is? Because again, this kind of turns into a partial definition paper because I have to define what gambling is in my terms because the term, like the Oxford term, is so vague. And again, you have to think about the context that it was written in. That I'm pretty sure that term was written before the internet was even a thing because it's a dictionary, right? So it's kind of like I don't know if you watched that Brittany Venti video about like prostitution and cam girls and sex work. Like for instance, all like people on OnlyFans, they're prostitutes. People Instagram models are prostitutes because well, not Instagram models because you're not paying for it, but like in the instance of OnlyFans, she's talking about like people don't say oh well that isn't like prostitution is whatever that term's so old whatever. But ideally, well, not ideally, but the term prostitution is basically sexual, paying for sexual like favors or sexual intercourse, and you know, or no, I think it's sexual activities. I think right, and jerking off, masturbating, that's a sexual activity. So in that term, in that sense, that old term still is relevant today. However, people on OnlyFans don't consider themselves prostitutes because again, it's like, oh, well, that term's so old and this is the internet, it's different now, right? But it still applies. I'm kind of trying to argue that too for gambling. Like the term might be old and dated, but it still applies in the sense that you're playing a game, and the game not and usually when they say game, they usually use the term horse racing or darts or something like And I'm trying to fit that word game because you know if someone's like, oh well, you can play the game. Well, you don't need to buy a loot box. What do you mean there's a game? You already are playing a game. Um, But again, the game isn't necessarily the game you're playing. It's the game that you play with chance, right? It's the game of chance. That's what I'm trying to focus on. It's the game of chance. When you press that X button or when you hold that X button or whatever key button you have to open the loot box, you're playing a game. You're playing the odds, essentially, right? Because you don't know what you'll get. You know you'll get something, but you don't know what you'll get is what you want. Or you don't even if you don't want anything, you don't know what you'll get. It's that uncertainty and that randomness is what is considered gambling, right? It's like when you flip a heads or tail, you can get heads or tails, but you know you're gonna get one of them, but you don't know which one, and that's a chance you're taking. You're taking a chance, and when it involves money, that's gambling. So that's what I'm trying to define. Um, Maybe I just did it right there. But yeah, that's about it. Thanks for listening. There's really nothing to watch here. I'll upload this anyways because I don't want to have to keep pulling this off my computer on my lap because I have two laptops. This one's on my HP laptop. I don't have to keep pulling it off my laptop to listen to, so I'll just upload it to my channel so I can listen to it. I might even unlist it. Actually, no, I won't because I really need. I maybe I'll talk to one of my friends to see if they get it. Yeah. Anyways, thanks for listening. Bye.